Thank you for joining us today. My name's Gary Hall, and I'm the Director of the Centre for Post-Digital Cultures here at, so I'm just admitting people constantly here, at Coventry. I'd like to welcome you all to the first event in our new series, which is the Coventry Cultural Theory Presents, which is organised by my colleagues, Angela McRobbie, Lindsay Balfour, Adrian Evans, and myself. I'm going to just give an introduction to the event and the series and the centre, and then we'll get into the main event, as it were. So all four of us work in the centre, Post-Digital Cultures at Coventry. As you can see, and one of the things we think about the centre, and one of our approaches in the centre, is to just acknowledge and maintain different approaches and viewpoints. So my colleagues will no doubt have different versions of the origins of the centre, origin narratives for this series in itself, but I'm just going to give you one of them. And so probably most of us, there we go. Most of us think that the point of a university and the point of a research centre such as ours is to provide spaces where society's common sense ideas can be examined and interrogated, and where this can be done in order to make connections between what's happening in different parts of society, and so produce a better understanding of it. I think I've taken that from Angela, one of her talks. I'm sure she won't mind. So we have, go back here. Oh, there we go. We have 6 research themes and groups in the centre, and I'm not going to describe all 6 of these today. I'm just going to say that, as the title of this series suggests, a number of us identify as being cultural theorists. So one of the things we're particularly interested in examining is theory, whether that's Marxist or feminist or post-humanist, and our own subjectivities as authors and academics in the aftermath of the digital. There we go. So our post-publishing strand involves us interrogating common sense ideas about how we create and publish and disseminate our work. So that would be ideas of the named individual author and the sovereign liberal humanist subject, originality, authenticity, copyright, right down to our ideas of the human itself, which explains our interest in the post-human. And then publishing can, of course, be defined as making public. And our accepted notions of the public are something else we're interested in interrogating in the centre, particularly in our art space in the city research thing. And again, it's important for us that the public is not something that we can take for granted. Instead, we see that the concept of the public, that notion of the public, is something that has to be called forth, as Mel Jordan put it in her work on art and the public sphere. And it has to be called forth artistically, practically, and theoretically. So, similarly in the post-digital intimacies theme, this explores how the distinction between public and private is changing in the context of the shift from analog to post-digital culture. Then here, phenomena such as the Me Too campaign and the murder of Sarah Everard in London, which is one year ago last week, and the ensuing protests and vigils, they show how aspects of subjectivity and sexuality and gender inequality that were once kept hidden are now being revealed on a public scale. And that's thanks to digital technology and social media, but also in a way to the pandemic, which made clear the dependency of the capitalist economy on care work in particular. So we're also interested in destabilising, if you like, society's common sense ideas of subjectivity too. Is it just that the private is becoming increasingly public today? Or does the introduction of surveillance technologies such as work or school-issued laptops in the home during the pandemic, does that suggest that our very concepts of public and private, subject and object, human and non-human, are no longer appropriate? Do we need to call forth new concepts to replace them too? And that's where this series comes in. Not surprisingly, the link between theory and subjectivity has led us to explore topics such as auto theory, which is pretty much what it sounds like: a combination of theory and autobiography, memoir, and other subjective and embodied modes of discourse. So is auto theory another example of what elsewhere I've described as the memoirification of culture? Like, everyone's writing a memoir these days, it seems. And here, a singular perspective is often used as an entry point to a larger topic, because readers are presumed to be able to locate and access a work better if they know something about the author as an individual, their history, their biography, their personality, and so on. And in fact, one of the first texts to articulate the idea of the individual as a fully developed political unit was this one, which is the 1816 novel Adolphe by Benjamin Constant. And that was also what's classed as one of the earliest examples of autofiction. Constant has himself been described as the world's first truly modern liberal individual. So does this perhaps explain why even quite radical authors are giving in to the pressure to tell us what it feels like to be them and regale us with real life stories of the struggles they've overcome to get to where they are? It's because for all their radical politics, deep down, they too are really liberals in the end. Or is there something more interesting going on here? So in his forthcoming book, Glitch Poetics, Nathan Jones offers a different reading of the autofiction of Sally Rooney, Ben Lerner, Sheila Heti, and others. And here the boundaries between the individual self and other, subject and object, fiction and non-fiction, are seen as having become harder to sustain today in the internet age. For Jones, internet age autofiction authors address this by distorting or glitching the self with its fictionalized form. So are internet age auto theorists such as Maggie Nelson and Chris Kraus and Paul B. Presadio, are they doing something similar with their hybrid combinations of different disciplines and genres? Rather than being liberals or merely another instance of that constant generation of memoirs, are they too glitching the self? But also, if auto theory represents yet another supposed theoretical turn, which we can set alongside the linguistic turn, the ontological turn, and all the others, what is it that auto theories turned away from? Is it the paranoid mode of theory associated with negative critique, with finding faults and contradictions in the thought of others, as opposed to more constructive and affirmative practices of world making? Now we're seeing an antagonism within and between different generations of theory. And finally, for now, why is auto theory one of the few places in contemporary culture where you can still write theory and not have your ideas dismissed by some Oxbridge-educated journalist as being too difficult for the supposed ordinary reader to understand? So these are just some of the questions we want to address with this series. But we also want to use it as an opportunity to pay homage and tribute, if you like, to some of the thinkers who've been important to us over the years. Thinkers whose work in many ways cuts across these different forms and styles of theory. And one of whom is Professor Jackie Stacey. Jackie's Professor of Media and Cultural Studies in the Department of English, American Studies and Creative Writing at the University of Manchester. And her publications include Stargazing, Female Spectators in Hollywood Cinema, Teratologies, A Cultural Study of Cancer, and the Cinematic Life of the Gene. The talk for us today is titled Personal Value, Impersonal Subjects.